When you think about it, wasps are really just reverse whores. They fly around sticking their ass in things to get food, instead of things in their ass to get food. This is UnstoppaBill podcast. I'm UnstoppaBill, and here we go. So we got the giant Asian hornets that are in Washington State now, and I don't know how long they expect them to survive. Maybe they'll become a truly transcontinental invasive species and wreak havoc across the honeybees across the U.S., which is already in huge amount of jeopardy from what I understand. They're on the endangered species list now, and that creates all kinds of problems for our food crops and other various parts of the ecosystem. I have no idea how that's going to work out or what we're going to do to fix that. I mean, we've got all these you know household insecticides that we spray on our lawn and garden and our trees and you know our flower beds and everything else to keep the pests away from tearing them up, but it kills the fucking bees too. So this is creating quite a problem. And of course there's the whole commercial side of it, which is probably far more impactful, but at the same time, the stuff that we do at home is also affecting all of these insects and small creatures and further up the food chain. So I imagine, I don't know if there's any hard research on this, but as you start looking at the way the food cycle works, is you end up with less and less insects, particularly herbivorous ones, and you start getting more of the parasitic ones. I don't want to say parasitic, but probably like mosquitoes and the pesty type ones that like to bite us, because a lot of the foods that the predators eat, well, also we're killing spiders with these pesticides too, right? They eat a huge amount of biomass every year. I think there was some study talking about how if all the spiders in the world just ate humans, they could actually devour the entire human race within just a couple years, and that's pretty fucking amazing when you think about it like that, because they're so tiny. Like even the biggest spider, there's like the I don't know what the biggest spider is. I think it's the baboon spider, birding spider. It's not really my area of expertise or my forte. I'm not a spider guy. But all right, so you lose all these parts of the ecosystem, and particularly the predators, and then you end up with a bunch of extra, mosquitoes not getting eaten by lizards and frogs and dragonflies. Dragonflies, a lot of people don't know this, but dragonflies are really mean ass predators. They start off as these things called nymphs that live in the water, and they will eat tadpoles, they will eat fish, they will eat other nymphs. Like they look like this underwater praying mantis with a stabby kind of praying mantis face and like a really pointy butt and some claws, and they're really pretty neat. And then they turn into this winged freaking insect helicopter that can do all sorts of wild aerial acrobatics and catches mosquitoes and other unfortunate flying critters in its little legs like a basket and devours them. So, we've got the murder wasp now, which I don't think these things will be eating, or I don't think the dragonflies will be eating. Maybe the murder wasp, or I don't really like to call them that. It's such a trendy name, the Asian giant hornet. But so we've got those to contend with now, and all the effects of our ecosystem here thereafter. And I don't think that there's probably anything suited to prey on them here in the United States. We get the giant cicada killer wasp here in Texas, and that thing is freaking enormous. It kills these cicadas. Cicadas are what colloquial called locust, but it's not a locust because it's like a grasshopper type thing, and it kills them, or it paralyzes them, drags them to these underground burrows, lays its egg, and the eggs hatch into larvae that devour this poor cicada alive. It's really the shit right out of nightmares, and makes you really glad that you are not small enough to be eaten or a prey item for a wasp, because man, nature is really brutal. We think we're brutal, but nature is just cruel as hell and does not care. And that brings me to another point about things that people don't care about. I can't tell you how many times I have uh, requested this. I even put it on my application, but once again, I look, and my employer paid me in cash, like deposited it straight into my bank instead of the cocaine like I asked for specifically. And why would you ask for cocaine? Well, I don't know. I'm pretty sure the money's not very good, and it spins easier. Um, especially if you're having to deal with cartels, which I'm not, thankfully, or not really looking for any cocaine either, to be perfectly honest. But it just popped into my head about getting paid in cocaine instead of gum, because nobody ever pays me in gum either. Which, if I had to choose between cocaine and gum, it would be absolutely cocaine every time. I'm pretty sure I could turn that into a more profitable source than some. I don't even remember what the gum company was that had those stupid commercials. But the cartels, man, they are crazy. It's amazing how powerful they are and like how sadistic. And when you watch these videos, I don't know if anybody remembers ogrish.com. Like, I don't think it doesn't exist anymore. It got turned into like LiveLeak or something. And they have all these horrible videos. I remember watching them back in the early 2000s when they had all the Al Qaeda beheading videos, or maybe it was when ISIS was first popping out. I don't remember the terrorist organization back then. And then I remember these videos where had these two guys that were apparently some rival cartel gang member, and they were saying a message, that they're sending a message to the other cartel, and they had the two captive cartel members reading it out loud. And I don't know if they were reading it or they memorized it or if it was just something off the top of their heads that they were being fed, and then like the chainsaw comes in and kills the one guy, and like guy's alive, and just really it was so amazing and horrible in its efficient cruelty and how completely nonchalant these guys were. Like, they are about to get chainsawed to death, and there's no remorse, no regret in their eyes. They are just stone cold killers, and they have accepted their fate like it was just the way that it was meant to be. And I guess for a lot of these people, that's how it has to be. If you're going to be involved with people like that, I guess, you didn't come up right in the first place. I guess it's the whole psychopath, sociopath thing. And I guess these guys are like your real true sociopaths, your anti-personality, antisocial disorder. I think that's what it's called. I don't want to speak of things I don't know a whole lot about. This is just kind of what I understand of it. And these people are just completely incapable of caring for anyone else, even themselves. It looks like, just watching that video, watching them just get killed. They're just like robots going through the motions and just trying to chase that next big score so that they can feel something for a little bit, and do that over and over until the lights get put out. Like, that is a crazy way to live. But they are so incredibly efficient the way they operate. I guess the guy at the top, or the guys at the top, I'm not sure. They've got to be, every bit as crazy, but they still have to have some form of structure or code for them to go by. I don't know. Like, I should probably research this more, but just thinking about, you work with people like that, always looking over your shoulder, looking around and trying to see who's going to get you next. And because you probably wronged lots of other guys, and you probably screwed up and did something, to piss someone off. And how do you get to the top of that? I guess you just murder your way to the top and everybody's afraid of you, but then how do you keep them from teaming up on you? I guess that happens all the time too, but some of these guys are just so successful and hold these positions for so damn long. Maybe it's their ability to manipulate the local population into, favoring them and cooperating with them, and it's that false charisma that lets them move throughout their communities and just by influence. I know the the triad over in Japan. I think they were going out and buying bicycles and stuff for kids, and Of course they're spending all the sort of the money to do this if they rob from people in the community, but then in order to get them to shut up about them and not complain, they would occasionally do nice things for people in the community, and then of course extort people who had borrowed money, make their wives do porn or turn them into prostitutes, etc. That was a story that I heard, and I don't remember where I heard it now, so it may be completely false, but that they were taking people, offering loans, and when the guy or a girl, whatever, couldn't pay the loan back, they would force them to do porn because they could keep selling the porno again and again and again on the internet and making money that way off of a single act instead of just making her a traditional prostitute. And of course, I'm sure that they probably make her keep doing more and more videos, but that was one of the sex trade sex trade, human trafficking arguments against the legalization of porn is that unlawful entities, criminal cartels and organized crime would exploit these girls that way and create a larger profit margin for them. And I get that. That's a real concern right there. But there's so many on the other side of it that still just kind of doing it as legal and safely as possible, because it's going to exist one way or another. And it's like anything else with regulation. Back to the coke jokes, is once upon a time cocaine was legal. I mean, there's the old joke about when you got sick, the old doctors would just tell you to do some cocaine and smoke some opium and you'd be fine in the morning, or so high that you couldn't even tell that you were ever sick in the first place. I guess until you came down and had to go back to the doc for a new prescription. Had to be good business back then. But the whole trying to connect with regulation versus legalization, or regulation through legalization and decriminalization to reduce the artificially inflated black market pricing. And so far as I can tell, and what we see with places that have done this with pot, there's been a lot of organized, legitimate corporations moving in and individuals just making a bunch of money off of it and making a killing. Like they're making huge amounts of cash in California and Colorado in tax dollars and just repurposing them for arguable causes and genuinely approved civil causes, roads and etc. My roads, who will build my roads? Sorry, a little libertarian humor there. But yeah, so could this model work with all sorts of recreational drugs? I mean, you don't go to the gas station and ask for heroin, right? I mean, you could, I guess, if you decriminalized everything, but just because you go to the gas station and you buy yourself a candy bar, you don't see the beer sitting there and say, shit, I gotta drink a beer. I mean, if you're an alcoholic, you might do that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to be an alcoholic just because there is beer available damn near 24/7 right around the corner. We have plenty of alcoholism. We're not like Russia. Russia has like a huge alcoholism problem. Like I remember reading it was like a third of the population over there suffered from alcoholism, and it was like the third leading cause of death was alcohol-related health issues. Man, those Ruskies like to drink their vodka, and I'm sure they like to drink lots of other things just like the rest of us, but of course, that's the big one right there, right? The vodka. So yeah, it's to me the whole gateway drug explanation or argument seems really to be a false narrative. I think what happens is more likely that when you are getting things from shady sources resort to shady business practices, and those would be more like bullying or peer pressure and just upselling products like, oh hey, what, I don't have any pot this week, but I've got some of these pills. Take some pills, man. These pills, they're like 3 to 4 joints. Like, you could pop two of these pills, and it's like smoking a whole joint. It just happens, and it lasts so much longer. Just take this. You're cool. It's good. And then that's how you get an addict. From that. I think that's your real avenue of your gateway, is that shady people put you in contact with shady substances and shady tactics. It's not that it's just available there on the shelf. That's just the whole nature of the people who engage in the illegal activities, that they're not going to have the best scruples about them. I don't think I've ever been in a gas station and had the clerk look at me when I bought an ice cream and be like, "Hey, dude, you need a beer? You need a beer to go with that ice cream? You probably need we got a deal on some beer. You better buy some beer, because I'll beat your ass. You don't buy some beer." That shit happens with these shady dealers, man. They'll pull all kinds of crazy tactics on people, and that's where things get worse. And of course, the biggest and oh my goodness, the biggest cause of addiction is typically trauma, right? People who just have some sort of issue they can't get over that makes them always look for a coping mechanism of one sort or another. And there's lots and lots of documentation on that, and you get too puritanical with it, and everybody who's on that side, I don't mean puritanical like in the original colonial religious context, but just that you can always power your way through everything, and that everybody can just use their sheer willpower to overcome every single obstacle in their life, no matter how traumatic or painful or significant it was. I don't think that that's really a working model, and certainly the statistics don't show that that's a working model, because it's not, right? The statistics don't support that. It's not working, so good luck with that. And it's really ridiculous to me to think that knowing the physiology of brains is so much different, right? It's like so many people have so many different interests and so many different responses to stimulus. You could just take food. Like, so many different foods taste different to so many people that you might love Coca-Cola. Now, like, to me, soda tastes awful. I don't know what it is about soda, but it just has the nastiest flavor, and I find it to be very, very lingering. It just sticks with me and makes me want to chug water, brush my teeth, and I cannot stand even a sip of it. And I don't care what kind of soda it is, except for when I'm really sick. I will drink an orange soda. Now I got to be like damn near dying. I don't know what it is. I got a good sinus infection or something. Orange soda. Is this just fantasy? Or is it orange soda? I don't know. Yeah, so our brains are all structured different. They respond to different stimulus differently, right? So why would you expect somebody who suffers some sort of horrible traumatic injury, especially traumatic injury, traumatic experience, abuse, tragedy, whatever it is, especially during developmental years of their life, to have the same response and the same resolve as everybody else? Like, it's just, there's not a single cookie cutter formula for that. Now, I'm not saying that people can't be held accountable and that they shouldn't work to get through things. They absolutely should, right? I mean, I find myself very capable of disciplining myself, and everybody needs to have self-discipline and stay disciplined. But I think that there are really, truly limits to the amount of discipline that an individual mind can successfully do, right? I mean, because not everybody out there is Jocko Willink, right? You're not getting at it and crushing it at 4 a.m. in the fucking morning, all morning long, every goddamn day, never a day off. Just a complete, I don't want to say psychopath, because like, he seems like a pretty nice guy and really, really articulate. So I just mean, that level of commitment and discipline is not inherent in all of us. Maybe there's a potential for it, but I believe it's more along the lines of different wiring paths in different brains. It's like IQ. We are all differently smart, or different abilities of intellect. You can argue over IQ tests and their validity and such, until the cows come home. And there's some solid arguments for why the questions are structured the way they are, or what the questions are really trying to indicate, and that there might be other examples of intellect out there. But at the end of the day, is like these are things that are typically just your cognitive abilities at their core level. Like what is your fundamental ability to rationalize these shapes, these patterns, to find the commonality between them? And not everybody has the same level of that. And it's like you would not expect yourself or your children to do as good at that as you would Albert fucking Einstein. I mean, and why? Why? What was different about Albert Einstein's brain? Right? You should just have the willpower to study until you're Albert fucking Einstein. What's your excuse? Come on, man. What, are you lazy? You weak? You can't be Einstein? You can't do astrophysics in your head? You can't come up with new theories of quantum physics? Yeah, I guess he did get into quantum physics, right? So you can't get into that in your head? Come on, what are you doing? You don't have thought exercises. You're fucking daydreaming. You're not changing the world. You're not changing science for all time. You're just lazy and weak. You lack the discipline of Einstein. So I don't think that's a working model. That's a stupid model. We got to find some sort of other way around this. Maybe it's some sort of placebo treatment to get people weaned off of things. I don't know, or like a gradual detox, or either way, it's just I think it's hurting us overall as far as the society goes. With the inflammation of crime, like we've got these drug cartels that are literally multi-billion-dollar companies. And I say that they're multi-billion-dollar companies because like they have a revenue and a revenue stream that they rely on, and you start cutting that off, and that hurts them. And of course, they just switch to a different route, right? They just find them a new commodity to deal in as each one becomes less and less lucrative. And they're going to do it, and they'll find some sort of way to exploit the laws and exploit the people and the communities around them, and cause as much pain, suffering, and grief as is profitable for them. And so you can't take somebody who's some low level user, or maybe even a low level seller, and just throw them in a cage with the real animals, and then cost everybody through the whole myriad of expenses, from law enforcement to infrastructure to court cost, the taxpayers to foot that bill all the time. I mean, I understand that's what we pay some taxes for, is to keep the real monsters in there, but I feel like these numbers are really artificially inflated by these laws, where these are people who otherwise wouldn't be what we would call dangerous criminals. Maybe there's some sort of other form of punishment that could be done to discourage the use, or I don't know. I hadn't really thought too deeply on alternate forms of dissuasion from it. I think probably has something to do more with addressing how we look at mental health for sure, and trauma, and maybe not being so hardcore assholes about everything, because like I'm kind of like that. It's like, oh, hey, okay, you had a rough childhood. Oh, okay, well, nice excuse, pussy. Why don't you pull your shit together? Like, yeah, I don't think that's fair, because back to my point is that I'm not the toughest dude in the world by far, so how can I expect everybody else to be as tough as me? Because there's somebody else out there way fucking tougher who doesn't understand why I'm not as tough as him. Just like somebody out there way taller than you who doesn't understand why the hell you can't see what's on top of the fucking refrigerator, you short piece of shit. And this is costing all of us. It's costing every single one of us. It's a huge burden on us, and I don't think that these people are stealing enough in trinkets to pay for their habit to justify these gigantic prisons and all the justification that came along with it for increased surveillance and asset forfeiture to compensate for the little bitty amount of bullshit that they steal. And on top of that, like, I'm kind of the mind of let's protect our property the old-fashioned way. I understand people are going to steal, and I'm not really opposed to the idea of people getting shot for stealing from private property. I mean, you want to break into my place, or catch you breaking into my car, like, you're going to get confronted, and I have no idea how that's going to turn out. But I don't blame anybody who shoots somebody in those circumstances, especially at night, people know the risk. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. You got a medal, and it was lead, dude. So that's a that's a big deterrent right there. I think so, or at least it'll reduce the population of them a whole lot quicker. Texans don't fuck around with that stuff. You can get popped, and that's the end of your story right there in someone's driveway. Uh, it's sad when it happens to some stupid kid who's just breaking into cars, but that kind of falls back on the parent too for being like, hey, you know, you don't steal from people's cars in their house at night. And, if your kid's doing that, you're probably not the greatest parent already, but I know that there's some parents out there that just have hell for children. Like there is something that went wrong, and they came out with this ultra rebellious, angry, evil little bastard, or maybe just super impressionable and lives in a crappy neighborhood with other crappy neighbors, or just gets mixed up with one wrong friend. It could even be a good neighborhood, right? Because there's plenty of wealthy kids who do lots of vile shit too, and they need to suffer for that, or be punished, be dissuaded, whatever. And I went on forever about this topic, way longer than I thought I was going to. But that's that's something that we're going to have to come up with a way around in our world if we're going to try to cut down, I think, on the overall really structured, organized crime, like the really powerful elements. Because like these guys, they have political power. They're so damn rich. They have political power, and then they get not corporations. Well, they get corporations, right? And they start leaning on them and use all sorts of tactics to get money out of them and to invest into their product. Sometimes like it's a perfectly willing relationship between them, and then sometimes I'm certain that it's not. And then you've got like stuff like the Zetas down there in Mexico that ended up with military hardware. They beat the Mexican police in a all-out war in the streets, and then started threatening to kill citizens until they let what's his name's son out of prison or jail, whatever he was in. And that's a hell of a thing right there. Is when your own police just get outright beat down by a gang of criminals who are really 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 powerful criminals who have 50 cal mounted fucking machine guns, right? They got a couple of Ma Deuces out there and just letting them have it. So, how do you take the power back from that once they get there? Well, I mean, force begets force, I guess. That's going to have to happen. But in this case, I don't think anybody in their side of things is really motivated enough or has enough confidence in their government or their man, is it their community? I don't know. I don't know what that's about. I can't wrap my mind around it. Fear, probably. It's something that I really probably should look into more before I speak on that. There was one other thing. I'm going to just move on from there because I don't really know how to taper off. And something I noticed on the way coming home today was, I've noticed this lots of times before, but I never really thought about why this plays out the way that it does, where you're pulling up to a light, right? There's a turn lane, or there's two lanes, and one of them is a turn lane, or there's like double turn lanes, and all the cars are in just one. There's two perfectly good lanes, but traffic's backed all the way up in one lane. Everybody's staying in that one, and you could easily merge over, but no one wants to do that. They're just going to keep staying back because, I don't know, maybe the shorter radius of that left-hand turn in the inside lane makes them feel like they got through there faster. And instead of trying to merge after they get past it because everybody's a jackass and won't let anybody over because nobody knows how to do the zipper method, everybody's got to be first in line. It's the same thing whenever there's a bottleneck, right? You got two perfectly good lanes. Everybody wants to get in the one left lane because they're sure that they can zoom right through, but then that's not what happens. Is everybody thinks that they're a little kid in line for the fucking ice cream truck, and they just stay in that one lane, and they won't let anybody over. I waited all the way here, and I'm not going to let you over because
I waited and you don't get the shortcut. Well, shit, you know what? If everybody just let the car go one lane then the other, right? Back and forth, left and right, zipper, 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 it would go so much faster. I've worked in big plants where they do this, right? Where they have a director of traffic and two different intersections coming together, and they just go left, right, left, right. They got to direct people because people are assholes and selfish, and they won't agree to this because that's what Americans do. Is we tend to be kind of pig-headed and selfish, and we just go on about what the shit we're doing, and everybody else is not me. It sucks, but it goes so much faster. Like sometimes a little bit of cooperation and a little bit of reciprocity with others around you really smooths out the day, and it can smooth out all kinds of part in your life. I don't know. So while y'all are out there, I guess we're gonna wrap this up. We've hit the 30-minute mark. Watch out for those reverse whores. Don't let them put their ass in you. Have a good day.